Cooper with a camera here with a slightly different video than you might be used to from my channel. I'm posting something that isn't a shitpost for once. I'm currently working on an extensive video for a Resident Evil Iceberg. Hopefully the first part of that video will be coming really soon. And during the research for that video, I came across one Iceberg entry called the Wesker Fake Face theory. You can count this video as a bit more of a deeper look at that theory, which will hopefully tide you over while I put together the much longer Iceberg video. So, I believe there's a couple of different interpretations for this theory. The first is pretty simple, but I really think the second one has potential to reveal some spoilers for the upcoming Resident Evil 9 game. So if you're absolutely wanting to avoid spoilers for that game, whether this theory turns out to be accurate or not, you might want to tune out now. First theory. So, the simple interpretation of this theory is that it's about Wesker's face at the end of Resident Evil Code Veronica X, and how he looks when he reappears in Resident Evil 5. In Code Veronica X, Wesker's face is badly scarred by the end of the game from his fight with Chris. The way he's selling this damage makes it seem like it's pretty bad, and so you'd expect some kind of scarring or long-lasting damage. Sure, he's a super-powered superhuman, so there's always the chance that he just healed his face and scar between Code Veronica X and 5. But personally, I find it more funny to think that Wesker had some kind of cosmetic surgery or a fake face between Code Veronica and 5. Look at that silky smooth skin.
What the hell?
Second theory. This second theory is a lot more in-depth and could present some RE Village and RE9 spoilers. So on the off chance this theory is correct, again, you might want to stop watching now to avoid spoilers. In Resident Evil Village, you'll find Heisenberg's strategy board, which contains a lot of photographs and information about the events of Resident Evil Village. Some notable photos include the House Lord antagonists, Mia, Rose, and Chris. If you look a bit closer at this strategy board, you can get a bit more clearer look at some of the less important photographs. One of them is this one here. Recognize this person? It looks quite familiar if you ask me, especially if I were to do this. So yeah, what we have here seems to be a picture of Wesker, but quite a bit older than when we last saw him, so my guess would be it's a photograph from after Resident Evil 5. I'm not sure if you'd say Wesker is necessarily scarred in this photograph, but he definitely looks wrinklier than his Resident Evil 4 and 5 depictions. Considering he'd be about 60 by the time Resident Evil Village came out, it makes sense. The downside is it's hard to tell from this photograph if there's any scars or if it's just a picture of an old person. So, that's a lot to unpack. First off, if we assume that this is Wesker, it means that he either survived the final fight with Chris and Sheva at the end of Resident Evil 5, or the Wesker from Resident Evil 5 was a clone all along. That's a theory fans have had for years, and the Resident Evil series is no stranger to the idea of clones. If this is the same Wesker that died and came back in the Resident Evil 1 mansion, and this is a clone of Wesker, it would explain why he doesn't have any scarring. Again though, he's superhuman, so there's nothing to suggest he can't just regenerate his face with Wolverine-like healing powers. Now, there are a couple of other theories as to who this person may be, which I did just want to briefly mention. The first is that this could be Oswell Spencer. Personally, I don't think it is Spencer. It would make him extremely old by the time Resident Evil Village was released or when this photo became available. Also, he was killed at Resident Evil 5. I know Wesker was also killed at the end of Resident Evil 5, so we can't completely outline the possibility that this may be a Spencer clone, or that may have been a clone of Spencer. I'm leaning more towards it being Wesker, especially because if we do look at the strategy board, you can see that there is a string line that goes directly from this photograph to Chris Redfield. Obviously, Wesker has a bit more of a connection to Chris directly than Spencer would. Another possibility is Daniel Fabron from Resident Evil Resistance. Completely random for him to be appearing in this strategy board though. He's not mentioned anywhere in Resident Evil Village or any Resident Evil game except for Resident Evil Resistance. So I don't think this is Daniel Fabron either. Also, the photograph does seem to be of quite an elderly person, and I don't think Daniel would be that old by the time Resident Evil Village came out. In case you haven't heard, the first Resident Evil 9 trailer just dropped, and it looks fucking hype. We get to go back to the RPD in Raccoon City by the looks of it. There's Resident Evil Outbreak references, it looks great. And there's also this scene.
I know now that you're the one that I've been searching for. The special one. The chosen one. Miss Ashcroft.
The long-haired, old-sounding guy sitting in what seems to be a rundown mansion, like some kind of decrepit supervillain. Could it be? Well, some people are saying that it could be Spencer, that he'd be about 103 years old in that case. Also, Spencer was very much dead by the end of Resident Evil 5, but, you know, clones? We'll have to wait until Resident Evil 9 drops in 2026, but it's starting to look very much, to me at least, that the Wesker that was killed at the end of Resident Evil 5 may have been a clone, and the original Wesker, this one here, is set to come back in Resident Evil 9 with Grace Ashcroft being his target. And that's everything I've learned about the Wesker Fake Face theory. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below and keep an eye out for my Iceberg video coming in the future. Make sure to get hyped for Resident Evil 9.